Hello, everyone. Right now, I'd like to talk to you about the missed opportunity of Kneecap and Bob Vila as of late. Now, if you're listening to this, the 15 minutes has passed where Bob Vila and Kneecap have made the news about calling out the Israeli possible genocide that is going on in Palestine. And why I say it's a possible genocide, because even though it completely looks like it, there is still a court case going on to determine if it is. However, shooting civilians, keeping an open-air prison, not letting aid in, all those things are absolutely horrible. So I'm not minimizing the damage that's being done. But I'm not here to talk about Israel. I'm talking about the wildly missed opportunity by Kneecap and Bob Vila. Now let me start off in the video and they're saying, I love the fact that they spoke out. I love the fact that they absolutely risked their own careers and possible livelihoods and may have actually lost some money out of the deal by coming to the United States to stand up for people in need. And I think it's freaking awesome. However, now that the 15 minutes and the buzz of that is over with, politically it accomplished nothing. And I will tell you why. One of the members of Kneecap decided to display a Hezbollah flag. And a Hezbollah, they're horrible, horrible people. They are literally responsible for taking the democracy of Lebanon. They took it. They merged with Lebanon and became an authoritarian government. And the people of Lebanon have not had freedom since. Displaying their flag while criticizing somebody like Israel is absolute stupidity. Because you want to fight fascism, and then you're going to go ahead and use a symbol in literally a flag of a fascist government. If a fascist former terrorist group that merged into a government and, once again, I'll say it, took the freedom of all Lebanese people. That was an incredibly stupid move. However, and I didn't know this until they did this, the reaction from the UK has just been completely childish and stupid. They're actually being investigated for that. I don't understand that why. It's incredibly thin-skinned by the UK. And it at least exposed the stupidity of the UK's government. And here's the trick about this. They're being investigated by the government that's controlled by their supposed left-wing party, the Labour Party, who right now is pretty much just paving a way for autocracy in England, but maybe I'll do another video on that. But right now, we're talking about Kneecap. So using the flag for Hezbollah, bad. But let's talk about the good they did. They literally called out the ruling class in the West on a huge stage in Glastonbury. First of all, boys, good job. If you ever hear this, good job, and I appreciate that. The fact that you actually grew up and you're at the height of your careers and you decided, I'm not bootlicking these people, makes you really cool to me, and I appreciate that. However, once again, stop using fascist symbols. Hezbollah is horrible. They literally took the freedom of Lebanese people, and that was just a dumb move all the way around. But keep up the good fight. It's worth it. Now, what happened when they did that? It didn't really move the needle at all. And it was really just a lost opportunity. It could have been the time where Kneecap stood up and maybe helped change some minds. But as soon as they actually whipped that flag out once again, it may have very well negated a lot of the damage that you were doing to the ruling class. Because here's another thing, too. I'm 42. I can just look at it as a bunch of guys in their early 20s that made a miscalculation. Not a big deal. And I can make this video and say, hey, you know what, boys? Why don't you tone that part down? Rest is fine, which I'm doing. And I can overlook it. And I can also call it the UK for being a bunch of crybabies and investigating them for it. However, a kid in Israel, and this is the key right here, who may be a younger person, maybe a teenager, that's being raised by fascist parents, or maybe even being raised by democratic-leaning parents. Somebody's going to be torn in each way. There is so much fascist propaganda with Netanyahu. He's trying to turn Israel into a dictatorship, the same way Trump's trying to turn this one into the United States into a dictatorship. Now, they're going to see somebody speaking out for the Palestinians and literally waving the flag of a group that's right next door to them, that's tried and successfully killed multiple members of their country. Hezbollah, before they merged in with the government, was the terrorist group mostly more responsible for more American deaths than any other terrorist group. So you kind of get it on that one. Me, I don't really care. I get it. I see it as just a mistake. But somebody that's not as informed, younger, impressionable, you probably lost him on that. Now let's move on to Bob Vila. Bob Vila started calling death to the IDF. Once again, everything else he said I agreed with, but called death to the IDF in the very same way that a lot of the reactionary non-state actors do in the Middle East. So what's the problem with that? Well, let's just take it at its face. Let's just go ahead and pretend that Bob gets his way. It might have been rhetorical, and it might have been this or might have been that. And I'm just going to take it completely at face value, and let's just say this. All the current IDF soldiers, let's just say they disappear into the face of the earth. Let's just say they all die right this second. What happens? What happens is they have to activate other soldiers because Israeli has mandatory military service, and you're going to get people with less experience. You're going to get people with less professional standards and less skilled. So you're going to have more violence. You're going to have less people coming out to actually call out the actions of the professionalism like we're having. So it's a very dumb move all around. Furthermore, a lot of the stupidity that's being portrayed by the Israeli government, we know about that because of people in the Israeli government are actually talking to the media about that. So calling for the death of the IDF, a lot of whistleblowers that were maybe on the fence of actually putting themselves at risk to actually giving us the information we need to put it on blast, you might have convinced them otherwise. They might have decided not to speak. And once again, that kid, that impressionable kid, or maybe that low information, that political voter, you might have turned them off too. So unfortunately, it was an opportunity wasted. They may have sold some merch and some CDs and moved some stuff. That's great. They may have actually raised their profile. That's great. But politically, you absolutely accomplished nothing. However, your heart is in the right place, but your brain is not. Fix that and keep doing what you're doing.